submerged, turning the surface into a near-perfect reflection of the canopy above. What makes this region fascinating is how wildlife adapts to these seasonal changes. Fish move into flooded groves to feed on fruit. Pink river dolphins use submerged channels to access new hunting grounds. Even trees have evolved strategies to withstand months underwater. The reserve covers over 20,000 square kilometers, more than 7,700 square miles, making it one of the largest protected areas in Peru. But its importance goes far beyond size. Pacaya samiria acts as a reservoir of biodiversity, sheltering species that depend on extreme seasonal flooding for survival. Researchers study everything from water chemistry to migration cycles here, using it as a benchmark for understanding how flooded ecosystems respond to climate variations. Human communities in the reserve rely heavily on traditional knowledge to navigate its shifting waterways. Routes that exist in the dry season vanish entirely once the rains arrive. And as water levels drop again, the flooded forests open into river corridors that guide travelers toward one of the most biologically intense regions in the Amazon. Tambopata is known for its extraordinary concentration of wildlife, and its varied landscape plays a major role in that reputation. Rivers wind past oxbow lakes and clay-rich banks that act as natural gathering points. These clay deposits are essential for many species. Large mammals visit them to neutralize plant toxins, while diverse bird communities descend in predictable patterns to feed on minerals. This behavior provides researchers with rare opportunities to observe species that are otherwise difficult to study in dense forest. One of the reasons Tambopata is so biologically rich is its mix of habitats. Elevation changes, forest age, and soil composition vary across relatively short distances. A single hike can pass through ecosystems that host entirely different plant and animal communities. In some surveys, just a few square kilometers, barely a couple of square miles, contained more tree species than exist across entire temperate regions. Seasonal changes shape life here as well. During heavy rains, rivers rise and cut new channels, altering migration routes and access to feeding grounds. And at the heart of this region lies a phenomenon that is both visually striking and scientifically important. An event shaped by color, sound, and tightly synchronized animal behavior. Macaw clay licks, known locally as colpas, are among the Amazon's most dramatic wildlife spectacles. At dawn, dozens, sometimes hundreds, of brightly colored macaws gather on exposed riverbanks to feed on mineral-rich clay. Scientists believe these minerals help counteract toxins found in the seeds and fruits that macaws eat, allowing them to safely digest foods that would otherwise be harmful. The behavior is so consistent that entire research programs are built around it, documenting patterns in feeding, social structure, and vocal communication. What makes clay licks especially interesting is the precision with which macaws choose them. Not all riverbanks contain the right mineral composition. Birds return repeatedly to specific sites, sometimes traveling long distances, dozens of kilometers or many miles, to reach the same exposed wall of clay. The timing is equally predictable. Activity peaks during certain months when fruiting cycles change, revealing how closely the bird's diet is tied to seasonal rhythms. These events also attract predators. Raptors circle overhead, waiting for an opening in the flock's defensive formation. The interplay between risk and reward shapes macaw behavior and creates one of the Amazon's most dynamic scenes. And as riverbanks fade into densely forested slopes, the terrain begins to rise, revealing landscapes far more vertical than travelers expect in the Amazon basin. Gokta Waterfall drops an estimated 770 meters, more than 2,500 feet, making it one of the tallest cascades in South America. Yet this massive waterfall remained largely unknown to the outside world until 2005, when its full height was measured and documented. The surrounding landscape explains why it stayed hidden for so long. Gokta sits within a steep, cloud forest region where dense vegetation, constant mist, and remote terrain make access difficult. Even today, reaching the base requires navigating trails that pass through small villages and humid forest corridors. What makes Gokta scientifically interesting is the interaction between elevation, humidity, and wind. The waterfall's height allows mist to rise far above the basin, creating microclimates where unique plants thrive. And as the trail leads back toward the forest edge, the landscape begins to flatten again, revealing an area where multiple cultures, countries, and ecosystems converge. Leticia sits at the meeting point of Colombia, Brazil, and Peru, a strategic location that shapes nearly every aspect of life here. Unlike many Amazonian towns, Leticia serves as a tri-border hub where boats, goods, and cultures intersect. Its markets reflect this mix. Colombian fruits, Peruvian textiles, and Brazilian products often sit side by side. The city's position along the river also makes it an essential stop for transportation routes that stretch hundreds of kilometers, hundreds of miles, into remote regions. What makes Leticia particularly interesting is how it blends urban structure with rainforest proximity. Only a short distance outside the city, the dense Amazon canopy begins almost immediately. Local communities often rely on the forest for food, medicinal plants, and building materials, bridging modern infrastructure with traditional knowledge. The city is also a departure point for researchers studying freshwater ecosystems, as the nearby tributaries host diverse fish species adapted to shifting water levels. And as boats depart from Leticia into quieter channels, the scenery quickly shifts, leading toward a region where flooded forests, narrow waterways, and high wildlife density create a very different kind of Amazonian experience. The Coyabeno Wildlife Reserve in Ecuador is one of the Amazon's most accessible regions for observing biodiversity, thanks to its network of blackwater lakes and flooded forests. These ecosystems form when water levels rise during the rainy season, creating channels that connect lagoons, rivers, and forest basins. The acidity and clarity of the black water suppress certain organisms while supporting others, resulting in a unique mix of species not found in nearby whitewater systems. What stands out most in Cuyabeno is the concentration of wildlife around the lakes. Monkeys move through the canopy searching for fruit. River dolphins swim along the edges of submerged vegetation. Bird species gather in predictable patterns depending on water levels and time of day. This consistency makes Cuyabeno a valuable location for ecological research, especially studies on species behavior and seasonal movement. Local indigenous communities play a major role in managing the reserve. Their knowledge of plant uses, navigation routes, and animal behavior informs conservation practices, and guides sustainable tourism. As water levels recede, the lakes narrow and forest paths reappear, revealing a gradual shift toward the upland terrain beyond. And it's here, as the forest opens, that travelers encounter a landscape so visually unexpected that it feels like it belongs to a different continent entirely. Caño Cristales is often called the River of Five Colors, but the phenomenon behind it is far more complex than the nickname suggests. The vibrant reds, yellows, greens, blues, and purples come from a single aquatic plant, Macarenia clavigera, which grows only in very specific conditions. It needs clear, shallow water, strong sunlight, and just the right flow rate. If the current is too fast, the plant detaches. If it's too slow, sediment covers it. This delicate balance explains why Caño Cristales appears brilliant in some months and muted in others. And as the terrain rises beyond the colorful channels, the landscape shifts dramatically, leading into a region defined not by rivers, but by towering cliffs, table mountains, and waterfalls unlike anywhere else in the Amazon basin. Canaima National Park spans nearly 30,000 square kilometers, more than 11,500 square miles, and is dominated by massive sandstone plateaus known as tepu. These table mountains rise abruptly from the surrounding landscape, some reaching more than 2,500 meters, or over 8,200 feet, creating isolated environments where species evolve independently. The tepui are so ancient, dating back nearly 2 billion years, that scientists consider them islands in time, holding plants and animals found nowhere else on Earth. One of Canaima's most striking features is Angel Falls, the world's tallest uninterrupted waterfall. Water plunges nearly 1,000 meters, over 3,200 feet, from the edge of Oyan Tepui, dispersing into mist long before it reaches the pool below. During the rainy season, the volume increases dramatically, and the falls create drifting clouds of spray that rise along the cliff face. But Canaima isn't defined by a single landmark. Its rivers cut through pink sand beaches, narrow canyons, and steep-walled valleys that shift color with the sunlight. Indigenous Piman communities have lived here for generations, preserving knowledge about the area's geology, weather patterns, and traditional pathways. As the Tepui fade into the distance and the landscape opens once more, the journey comes full circle, bringing us from remote highlands back toward the vast, interconnected world of the Amazon Basin, ready for a final reflection. The Amazon may look like a single rainforest, but each region we visited shows how complex it truly is, shaped by shifting rivers, seasonal floods, unique ecosystems, and cultures that have adapted to this environment for generations. The facts we explored at the beginning reveal how these places fit together, turning individual landscapes into parts of one interconnected system. And although we've covered some of the most remarkable locations, the Amazon extends far beyond them, with countless areas still changing, evolving, and being studied today. Thank you for traveling through the Amazon Basin with us. If you'd like to explore more regions shaped by equally powerful forces, there are many more journeys ahead and more stories coming soon.